Hello, everyone. Okay, Mike, you should have sound too, and
Hello. Can you hear me?
yeah, I can hear you. And Kahlil will be joining us shortly, so just going to get started with this.
Cool.
Hope everyone's okay.
Thanks for having me on the channel. Thanks
Hey,
for having me over
you're
again,
welcome
man.
anytime, man.
That's cool. It's a nice way to spend a Sunday evening, chilled.
Yeah, and might not get too chilled with this stream because it seems to be a bit of a touchy subject. I think we've already seen some unsubscriptions just with the stream being launched. So hope
I
there's
don't think so, man. I mean, it's basically it's a subject with a lot of opinions on it. I don't think it needs to be a touchy subject. I think like people have got different opinions on it, and you know, you should be able to like chat about it
discuss them.
at
Yeah, I mean,
least.
that's the way it should be at least. Anyway,
Yep.
let's say hello to the people in the chat. Hello, Charlene.
Mm-hmm.
Hello, Campaign Terrain, and hello, Jamatra. How are you all doing?
We got Cross and Martin. Woohoo!
Yep. And Martin will be on the stream next Sunday on the 6th of March. So I am looking
Nice.
forward to that.
Cool.
So, Mike, what have been your opinions of the trailer so far?
Okay, so I've got my opinion seems to be changing backwards and forwards a lot. So I was looking forward to seeing the trailer. To be honest, the first thing that I noticed that I kind of was a bit disappointed with was I feel like it looks more like the Hobbit kind of CGI kind of territory for than the realistic look of the Lord of the Rings. But having said that, we're still quite a bit of time away from when it's coming out, and I know that like early trailers and stuff don't always have their CGI fully rendered, so
Yeah,
that
sure,
could
yeah.
improve. That could improve a lot. First of all, I would say that it's like really hard to assess what's going on with the trailer in like a minute and a half, or a minute or however long it was.
I think it was a minute, yeah.
And but so I kind of was going in expecting not to like it. First of all, I'll be honest about that. I was expecting not to like it, and then I was kind of pleasantly surprised by certain parts of it that I was like, that actually
Like what?
well, like well, for instance, the part where you have the elf in the middle catching the arrow and spinning and
Oh,
like doing
that
this
action
thing.
shot was fantastic.
I was like, okay, that was pretty damn cool.
No,
And
that's one of the
like
things I
just
like about fantasy. It's like that's fantastic. That's no way it could happen in real life, but it looks awesome.
like different things that I liked in it as well. I liked the like another shot that kind of like got me a bit intrigued was the person who's coming out of the burning fire.
I didn't catch that from the trailer. I just read about it later because it's literally too short to catch in the trailer.
I literally I watched the trailer like 10 times in a
Of course
row,
you did.
like I was actually pausing and going frame by frame in certain areas because like some of the shots were going so quickly. That is intriguing me. So like I'm kind of wondering, so there also seems to be like this one point when someone's looking up and there's like a shooting star coming down, and I'm wondering if that shooting star is how they're suggesting this character has arrived in Middle Earth, which leads me to believe that it could be, I don't know, perhaps it's Sauron, perhaps it's like, I hope it's not. It could be Gandalf. You never know. Like I don't like there's
I
the
still don't
shot.
like the idea of Gandalf showing up like that because it's like it's really not his style. Yeah.
Like, this is the thing, is that I think that there's going to be things that happen in this that I don't particularly like, but I'm going to give it a chance because I want to like it. I really want to like it. And I can remember whenever I was I was 18. No, I must have been younger than that. When did the Lord of the Rings, the Fellowship of the Ring came out? Anyway, when that came out, because our family's so into Lord of the Rings,
Yeah,
I
no
can
kidding.
remember us discussing. I can remember us discussing that film coming out before, and it was the same sort of conversations, trepidation about like, oh, but they're going to change this and they're going to change that, and and then we went in and finally got to see it, and turned out to be okay. That was really, really, really good. That's what I'm hoping happens here. I think that there are things that will disappoint me. I think that maybe things will bring me around. Like at the very end of the trailer as well, like the hand. Now I've heard a couple of
Okay.
the hand with the child, or is it a hobbit? I don't know. Hobbit in like that age.
Yeah, proto-hobbit. Yeah.
Proto hobbits, yeah, half foots. The hand, I'm kind of like, it kind of looks to me kind of Gandalfy, and
Yeah,
I'm
that's
kind of
the
hoping,
vibe I got to.
I'm kind of hoping they don't do a Gandalf. I don't want to see Gandalf in this. I really don't. Like, I think
Yeah, I think is
I
that
just,
one of the rumors that was floating around was like something like young Gandalf, which
how are they going to do him? Like, how are they going to do Gandalf justice now? Like, they can't do him justice now. Like, it's Gandalf is Ian McKellen to me. Like, that's like, and like
no,
he
yeah,
just did.
yeah. It's
He
like
just does.
it's like sticking someone else in the role of Indiana Jones. That doesn't work.
Yeah. But but yeah, like you say, right. So there are a lot of controversial perspectives and topics going around, and like, so it's a bit of a touchy subject. Um, some of the things that people have got a bee in their bonnet about just don't bother me. Because I'm like, okay, right, I understand the lore arguments and I understand these things, but come on, that's just like, scrap that. That's not a big deal. But I do understand the arguments. I do have some issues. I'm not a big fan. I'm just going to say it. Everyone's going to unsub now, Carl.
That's right.
I'm not a big fan of Galadriel in armor. I have to say, I'm sorry, but that is not me in any way having an issue with empowering women in armor or anything like this. Eowyn is a badass. Shield maidens, the Valkyries, like, got absolutely no issue with that whenever it is like to do with the story. But to me, Galadriel is so powerful that she doesn't need it, and I feel like her character is kind of maybe being made weaker by doing that.
I don't
Is
think
what I think.
it's just that, to be honest, because basically, if you look at Galadriel, first of all, they describe the writers describe her as being young and full of piss and vinegar, and look, she's literally older than the sun.
Yeah, exactly.
She's not a teenager with I don't know, anger issues. She is written as being very prideful and arrogant in the first stage, especially when she's younger. But then she kind of
Yeah,
grows out of that. But
yeah,
again, I mean, like, it's not a thing of uh, being against women in armor. Yeah.
yeah,
The thing is that, for example, if you already got other models for women in armor, yeah? Or fighter women or whatever, you've got there's Gwendolyn Christie, who is fantastic in Game of Thrones. Yeah, Brienne of Tarth. Uh, Forcing another fighter woman in armor is like saying, yeah, if you want to be respected, if you want to be badass, you have to be a fighter. You cannot be a diplomat, or you cannot be a leader the way Galadriel was. You have to be a fighter. Just kind of.
yeah. But it's well like that. She's one of the Valar, right? Or
No, no.
No, the Maiar.
No, not even. She's a plain elf.
She's playing elf, but like I've always kind of read her kind of on a similar level to those guys.
Almost, because basically what you've got is that she was born in the light of the two trees, so she's one of the earlier elves who seem to be like Mark One, seem to be all powerful, almost godlike.
Right. Yeah.
And also she got trained in magic by one of the Meyer, Melian.
Yeah.
So yeah, she's got some serious firepower there.
See, that's the thing. Like, it would feel equally ridiculous to me to see Gandalf dressed up in armor.
Yeah, good point. Exactly. Yeah.
It would feel equally ridiculous to me to see Saruman dressed up in armor.
Yeah, it wouldn't make sense.
Like, what? No, just doesn't feel right. That's it. Like, so for me, that's the only point that like I'm just like, nah, sticking on. Don't like that one. But so yeah, in terms of like changing races of characters and stuff like that, that doesn't bother me that much. I'm going to enjoy it anyway. And like I said, that first scene, one of the moments in that trailer that actually gave me like whoa, that was pretty cool, was that scene of him catching the arrow and turning. It's like, you gotta give this a chance. Like, all sorts of stuff that like, but they've got short hair, as if an elf can't cut its hair, like, you know, for some reason. I don't know. It's, if you were making this 20 years ago, it would be different. We're not making it 20 years ago. You're making it in 2022. We live in a different world. I don't know.
Yeah, but let's 1 second to catch up with the chat here. We've got Cross saying, "I'm not a fan, and even I'm upset. Seems to me the super fans should be hell angry." What got you particularly, Cross? Because it's interesting to see, because most people seem to have picked up on different points, and that's really interesting.
Of course, and I mean, for me, I just need to shut the door because I can hear my daughter. 1 second.
Okay, go ahead. Okay, Dean Payne stings. I'm trying not to get too excited or bummed about any of it right now. Would rather wait until it comes out and enjoy more Middle-earth. Good point. Yeah.
So, I mean, like, for me, I quite like being quite diplomatic. I like to be friends with everyone. So that's the thing. I don't like to wade in with like my big strong opinion that is like, you know, this is what I think and this is the way it should be. It's like, I like, that's what I'm saying is like, one day my opinion will be quite strong and be like, oh, I really don't like this and da 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 da. And then the next day I'll hear, like this afternoon, I was chatting with Benji from Benji's Hobbies, and he was like, I was saying to him what I was saying about the armor. I was like, I don't like that at all. And he's just like, yeah, but then again, like, you know, maybe this was shot at a time before she had Nenya, that like one of the rings of power. Maybe she was less you know, strong at that point. It's like, it's just kind of like just being reminded of like, we've seen 1 minute of video. We got to give it a chance. And like, you know, right. Okay. So, there are things that don't actually make sense, but they don't bother me. It doesn't make sense that a dwarf who lives most of their lives under the ground has darker skin, but it doesn't bother me. Like, I'm not going to let it bother me, because
to be honest,
otherwise I'll just get annoyed, like about something like.
To be honest, my first reaction to that was, eh. But again, I was talking to Kahlil last Sunday, and he mentioned something about that, and then it made a lot of sense why people would be annoyed about it. But I mean, when he shows up, he will talk about it. But to be honest, I think the first thing that put me off the trailer was these people.
Well, I mean, one of the things,
the horned people.
To be honest, what's putting me more off than the trailer is the conversation that's being had around it to a certain degree. Like, I don't like all of the negativity. Like, it seems to me like, I think that anyone who holds a strong opinion about it and is actually like, no, we need to stick to the lore and whatnot. I personally think that's um, a fair stance, and I'm more than sure that those people aren't doing it from um, a negative racist background. I'm sure they love loads of films and television, with like people of color in it, and it's coming from a love of the lore and the literature that they've loved for maybe their whole entire lives, and then
Yeah, I
to have to
mean,
rewrite things in their head is difficult.
the
Um,
whole lore has been there for over a century now. I mean, people have grown up with it.
exactly.
Yeah.
So like it's not just like where you go like, oh, okay, yeah, whatever. Like, I mean, I'm kind of getting there, but and I'm not going to let it bother me. I'm going to go like, no, if I want more Lord of the Rings content to actually at least engage with, maybe I'm going to hate it. Maybe I'm going to hate it, but I don't want to hate it. And um, so then like then you have the other like people who are on the Tolkien side going uh almost to the point where if you're not boycotting it, you're not a real fan of Middle Earth kind of thing. And I'm just like, oh, come on.
I don't think it's a question of being a real fan or not a real fan, and I don't like gatekeeping in that way. But Syria, for example, hi Tina. Uh, the nomads with the horns on the antlers on their back. I mean, like I think that's one of the things you mentioned. It's taking on a kind of the Hobbit aesthetic,
Yep.
and I think that's like. What,
Do you reckon that they look like hobbits?
no, I mean like it's not they don't look like hobbits. It's like the aesthetic of the Hobbit movies.
Oh, right, the aesthetic of the actual film itself. Yeah.
It's like I mean like okay, good for them. I mean they definitely do not skip leg day, but
Yeah.
what sense do they make in the context of the story or of this world? More than the story.
I mean, that one like could be anything. I mean, you could like, I don't know. I'm just looking at the picture now. I mean, they're hunters. It looks. I mean, basically, like I think you probably could boil it down to it just looks kind of good, I guess, or good, if you know what I mean.
I don't know, it doesn't look good to me. It looks like it looks totally weird to be honest.
Like you're gonna watch it, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, I might watch it and watch it properly, or I might watch it the way I watched the Wheel of Time, where I kind of just turned off and just looked at the pretty landscapes.
I kind of wish, to a certain degree, I wasn't a fan of Middle Earth to watch this, because I think that if I hadn't, like, if you weren't a fan of Middle Earth and you didn't have all of your preconceived ideas about the world and all of these things, you could probably just go in and just enjoy it as a kind of really cool fantasy thing. You know, it's like, but when you have like really like it's almost like religion to a certain degree.
Yeah, I get what you
It's
mean.
how do you underline, how do you unwrite that's well ingrained inside of you? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get what you mean. I think is that, for example, I think the landscapes are looking very good, the scenes and so on. But again, I do have some concerns about things like the weapon design, for example.
Yep. I mean that I don't know really about weapon design, so
I mean, take one of the earlier promotional materials was this, those shots of people with just a hand showing and holding an apple or a sword or whatever.
yep.
Yeah, and one of the shots was a guy holding a broken sword, which I think some people are saying might be Narsil, might not be Narsil, and
It can't. I mean, to show a picture of a broken sword kind of is alluding to Narsil, isn't it? I mean, are we? I mean, I think we'd be a bit early for that, wouldn't we? Though.
yeah, I mean, it only happens at the end of the second age, no?
Yeah. So, like, I don't see how they could be. Certainly not in the early seasons. And do they even have the rights to go into that?
Uh, Basically, I think they do because basically I think they've got the rights to, let's see, The Fellowship, The Two Towers, Lord of the Rings, I believe The Hobbit,
They don't
and
have the rights for that.
say again?
They don't have the rights for that.
I think they have the rights in the sense that it's mentioned in Lord of the Rings, so they can include it somehow, and the appendices, but nothing else to be honest. And that's another kind of thing I found rather worrying because it's like writing 5 seasons of the Second Age based off the appendices. It's like me
I think
writing a book report based only on the paragraph at the back of the book. You know what I mean?
so. I mean, basically, like what I ultimately think is that I think that the best that Amazon can do is make a fan film,
Say again, sorry.
like a fan fiction. Like it's their own story based within a world. That's what it feels like to me. Yeah, they'll have some of the characters in it that we all know and love, but like we were talking about earlier, like the Silmarillion, you can't really, like these earlier texts, you can't really piece together that much of a story. So it's all going to have to be written, and like they could go anywhere with a story. Like you don't know where they're going to go with it.
Yeah, true. On the other hand, again, I mean, like, there's other stuff like the time being compressed.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they're probably going to have all the events of the Second Age occurring over the lifetime of a human, rather than I think it was 5,000 years or something like that. So yeah, I think things might get slotted around as well. So let's see.
Have a little catch up in the chat and see what they're saying.
Yeah, let's see. Campaign terrain problems I've noticed. Enter freaks, short-haired elves, beardless dwarves, crappy armor, modern hairstyles, blatant cliché effects, physics. Probably forgetting something. Yeah, the beardless dwarf lady was also something that came up a bit in several
Yeah, I mean
discussions.
that like to be honest, what I really think the beardless dwarf thing. I think that came up before people started talking about the race. I think it was just giving a way in for people to talk, like say that they don't like that character, like in a kind of like awkward way. Maybe I'm wrong, but I mean, when even like in the movies, when like that's not a deal breaker for me. Like maybe she had a shave that morning. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, I think the thing is that the way Tolkien describes dwarf women is that apart from being extremely rare, uh, to other races they're virtually indistinguishable from the men
yeah,
visually, or
yeah.
even their voices and so on. I think that might not translate very well to television.
It might what?
It might not translate very well to television.
That like there are certain things like that I don't think do translate very well. Like, I mean, I saw someone somewhere say they don't talk about any dwarven queens. Like, and I'm just like, well, they do talk about dwarven kings, and they do talk
I
about
think
the
Kahlil is
off.
in.
That's cool. They do talk about dwarven kings and the offspring of dwarven kings. So it's not a big jump to say there must have been dwarven queens, eh?
I would
Hello.
imagine so. Hey man, how are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. Sorry for technical difficulties and whatnot.
Hey, no worries, man. I'm just going to update this
So
stuff
we've
for
got,
Zoom.
I'll just tell people in the chat here, we've got Kahlil coming in.
Kahlil.
Am I pronouncing your name correctly?
It's Kahlil.
Kahlil.
Yes.
It's kind of spelt similarly to an Irish name, Cahill.
Yeah, I know that. I get confused for that. Don't even get me started.
Nice to meet you, mate. By the way, I'm Michael.
Nice to meet you too. Nice to meet you too.
So, you're a fan of the Lord of the Rings?
I am, but it's kind of interesting. So, I became more familiar with Lord of the Rings after this whole controversy, actually, turns out I actually know a whole lot. So, so I played the video games. I didn't read the books. I didn't watch the film. Actually, I'm going to soon. Trust me. And I just, after this whole thing, it kind of gave me a crash course education in the whole thing. But I think I could tackle the social aspects of it more so.
Well, I'd be curious. I'd be curious about what you think for sure.
Oh, you got time? So, it's so many angles you could bite this whole Netflix series from. You can bite so many angles from it. So what we know from it, that J.R.R. Tolkien, he wanted this to be a mythology of England and kind of like a new mythology of it, right? So basically, where's England? In Europe. Europe's full of white Caucasian people. Why does it need to be filled with any type of we know the dwarves particularly are subterranean. In particular, we know that the elves also are they don't get much sunlight. Why do they need to have dark skin?
Yeah, I was mentioning earlier the elves most of the older elves are older than the sun, so it's like
exactly. They're not. I would say this much, and I don't want to get your YouTube channel in trouble or anything like that. but when you take all those elements all together, and there's like a kind of like a deep subtext here that the people in the film, it's like mixed with leftist social propaganda that's co-opted long-standing issues in the Black community. It's coalescing together, and it's making like a kind of like a nasty mix. You got all sorts of fandoms getting destroyed, basically because of the same thing. You got Marvel, who has Black Asgardians. They're supposed to be Norwegian. It's kind of coalescing. My main issue is this. Why does there need to be any type of Black or African anything in Lord of the Rings? It's supposed to be a mythology of England, and I will argue that there's more mythology in Africa, in the whole of Africa, than there is in Europe combined, because efforts in Christianity and whatnot to wipe away some of that, or kind of like fuse it, kind of like what you see in the Prose Edda and some Irish myths. You see some of that. So it's instead of going to Africa and picking off some of those, they go instead to well-established mythologies and remix it. Why? It's all for, again, a political agenda. And it goes into something called going back to the early 19th century. You see something called the collegiate 10. There's always been a big debate as far as like the place of Black people in America, at least, where should we join greater society, or should we just separate and just do our own thing? Leading the charge in early 20th century, you have W.E.B. Du Bois, and on the other end, you have Booker T. Washington. W.E.B. Du Bois, his argument was that, okay, how about we educate more Black people, and with that education, they should basically slide in society just fine. While Booker T. Washington, he's like, just separate from society and just do our own thing. We grow our own crops. We do just have our own flourishing community. Obviously, based on society nowadays, you see which type of philosophy kind of took over, like Black popular thought in society. That's where you get Martin Luther King. That's where you get these other leaders and whatnot. And it's turned into something nasty to where they don't value things that are originally black. They want to take over things that were white and make it to turn it into their own, and then gaslight you by calling you you're a ist, you're a phobe, you're this, you're that. At the end of the day, when you don't end up liking it, it ends up ruining your fandom, like He-Man, like Lord of the Rings, like Star Wars, like Doctor Who, Marvel, DC, all these things ends up kind of just corrupting it, and the fans end up suffering at the end.
Yeah, I remember one thing that you mentioned when we were talking about this was that. Say again, Mike?
That's a lot to unpack.
It is a lot to unpack. Which is one of the reasons that I wanted to have this stream, because there is a lot of stuff going on in this. But one of the things that you mentioned, for example, that really struck me was that Arundel, for example, the Black Elf, isn't really a black character. He's a white character who's just been painted black and thrown out for to check the diversity quota.
Yes.
Which that was.
I'm probably going to be playing the devil's advocate a little bit here with what I'm saying, but like, I can see what you're saying about the way society is going and whatnot, and it's because of this sort of inclusivity sort of thing that is kind of made me like, right, not take too much of an issue with that, if you know what I mean. Even though I've been a fan of Lord of the Rings since I was born, effectively, I'm kind of like initially going like, okay, that's not quite right. What's going on here? But then going like, all right, is this worth my headache to have an issue over? And ultimately, I've come to the conclusion of, right, no, it's not. So, like, whenever I've watched the trailer, for instance, like I was saying to Karl before you just came in, like one of my favorite parts is of the Black Elf in action, and it's just a really cool sequence of action. I'm just going like, okay, like give it a chance, maybe let that go. But like you're saying, in terms of lore, etc., I think those arguments are really valid arguments. It doesn't make sense within that European lore, kind of folk lore system.
Mm-hmm.
But there's the part of me that's going like, you do also want it to be accessible to as many different people as possible.
But how do you define accessibility?
Well, that's the question, and like that's why it's interesting to hear your opinion. 100%.
Okay, so I'll give you a good example. So I'm more so a big comic guy, right? Big JRPG fan, and I like Star Wars and the rest of it, right? As a kid, as a teenager, when I was really big into comic books, me and my cousin, we would always go Wednesdays to comic shops and get Batman issues, get Green Arrow, those two in particular. Why? Because in the likes, when you compare Batman to the likes of Superman, Wonder Woman, you know, they basically punch him into red paste through a freaking brick wall, and they're facing off against the likes of like Darkseid and Brainiac and real monsters, real demons and things like that. They can hold their own. Just having their ingenuity, their human will to do what is right, to basically beat these things and survive at the end of the day. As you know, Green Arrow has blonde hair, blue eyes and stuff. You see me right there, and you see Batman. It's not necessarily, in order to relate to someone, you don't necessarily have to be of that same so-called race. You don't have to be, you don't have to look like that person. I connected with them just sheerly off the fact that they're just regular people. They just have a little bit more guts, a little bit more wit than people. Of course, $1 billion, but they're meant to be kind of like the relatable everyman, and I like that. I resonate with that, and it didn't have to be of the same race.
But I think that's an interesting point, because I guess that's what people are kind of saying as a rebuttal to people who have an issue with black characters in The Lord of the Rings. It's like, you know, you can relate to the story, you can relate to the theme. Does it really matter that that's the skin? Like, you know, it ultimately it doesn't, like, on one level. But I think it's just hard to for people who have been part of the fandom for such a long time to disengage that, and they're having to rewrite the story in their heads then, if you know what I mean, to a certain degree.
Yeah, it's such an established lore, and I respect the fans, and I respect the lore so much so. It is so thoroughly written and everything. Kind of like what Karl was saying, that the elves have been around before the sun has even been around. The dwarves are subterranean. They have so much about particularly female dwarves and everything. I do know that aspect, well, mostly because of all this, but it's so many aspects of the lore that's like written out, and just there's a flagrant disrespect for this man and his lore, based on the way they're treating it. So yeah.
Okay, 1 second to catch up with the chat here. So Jamatra just raised another point. In theater, men have been played by women and vice versa for ages, and there are no white or black roles anymore. So why is it so hard for movie and TV audiences? Okay, to hold on to that point for a second.
Good point.
I don't think it's a problem as such. I mean, like I said, the actor doing the playing the elf in this is doing a good job. I think, like I said, the action scene looked fantastic. I've yet to hear any speaking roles or whatever, so we'll see. But I think he knows his job. On the other hand, the other point is also valid. This is not a character which, say, any. Kahlil will correct me here if I'm wrong, but I don't think he's got a background which any person of color will relate to. He is not a person in the real world with relatable experience. He's an immortal super warrior kind of thing, yeah? So the thing is this. They are
The same with Galadriel, by the way.
Say again, sorry?
The same with Galadriel, too, by the way.
Yeah, fair enough. So, thing is this. They put out these characters, they're saying, okay, here we're being diverse. But at the end of the day, there are a lot of stories which are not being told. Because you mentioned African mythology before. Irish mythology is also highly underrepresented. They're just picking small pieces here and there, but there's so much work they could do here. Persian mythology, whatever. There's so many other stories they could tell and actually be representational. But no, we're just going with some color. Yeah. So that's why I don't like it. Not the fact that there are people of color in a show. Okay, and
absolutely not. I mean, like I love so many shows with people of color in it. It's not like it's got absolutely nothing to do with that. I don't actually personally have, like, just to say, I don't personally have an issue with it in this show. Like, I'm going to enjoy it for what it is, and I think what it is, like I was saying to Karl earlier, at best is a fan fiction. That's the way I have to see it in my head. Do you see what I mean? I have to see it in my head that way, then I can enjoy it. I can't. Yeah. I can't. It's almost like something that I see. This is inspired by The Lord of the Rings, but it's not the same thing.
That's quite an eloquent way to put it. I would say, because all this, it's made me want to read Silmarillion, The Hobbit, and things like that. And I've obviously delve into it a little bit just by exploring the lore because it's so rich. I would say, don't even bother watching it. You'll get the wrong impression by watching it. Just go to the original source And it's something to be said about the particular audience that this is catering to. The book audience, they're a little bit, you don't see like shirts of a foot of a hobbit from Frodo or something like that. You don't see like shirts like memorabilia like with hats and wands of the White Wizard.
Saruman, Gandalf, all these guys.
Can't think of his name right now. It's a certain intellect of the book reading audience. So there's a little bit more pushback because they want you to be a little bit more faithful. But we know that when you adapt books to any type of medium, there's going to be ultimately something that's left out. There's always something that's left out. Whether there's a storyline change, they don't have this prop here. The books are only limited by the authors and the reader's imagination. And so because of that, you almost get this watering down process happening within the movies. If you remember, Peter Jackson, he got some flack too back when the original Hobbit, the Lord of the Rings movie was being made.
Mm-hmm.
And now we look back at that, it's just good memories, sweet times.
So, but that's the thing, is that's kind of why I feel like I want to give it a chance, is because maybe this is a similar thing where I go in going like, because I was saying to Karl, like, whenever I was younger, I was going like, oh, they're really going to mess up the books, and maybe shouldn't even make a film about the Lord of the Rings. That's where I was, is like, I love the books so much that I was just like, I'd seen the Ralph Bakshi cartoon versions of the Lord of the Rings whenever I was a kid, and I was just like, even though I watched them, because you absorb whatever content you can about that world, I was like, well, he kind of messed it up. He didn't, and then he didn't finish it, and then they made the Lord of the Rings were coming out, and I was just equally and had this exact kind of similar feeling of like, they're going to make these changes. I want it to be good. I don't know if it's going to be good, and I'm kind of hoping. Personally, like, my personal hope is that like it comes out and it becomes something that I enjoy and find that I can like, now I can get lost in another world. That's what I hope.
Yeah, that's a point. I think Dean mentioned it in the comments as well. At the end of the day, this is escapism. You want to have a look at a different world, which it's one of the things that kind of stood out to me when one of the show writers was talking, saying that. We have to adapt Tolkien to the modern world. It's like no.
You don't need to dumb down the material. It's good all on its own. It's good on all its own. And so I will add this too, right? The reason why I'm also not giving it any sort of leeway, any sort of chance, is because they've done this same exact thing with other fandoms, as I said before. It's kind of like the meme of the Grim Reaper going from door to door, and there's just like a trail of blood from each door. Like that. Lord of the Rings is the next door they're knocking on. They obviously did that with Star Wars, saying that they need more inclusivity, more this and more that, only for them to rip off some elements and say it's not. Star Wars has been inclusive, just like Lord of the Rings basically has been inclusive, especially when you consider Galadriel. But they're taking and spinning some of her elements into where, she's a warrior. I don't know about you, but you can't take a soldier and put him into like Olympic Games and expect the same results, or vice versa. They're essentially doing the same thing with Galadriel. They're making a mockery of it, in my opinion.
That one is, I actually have more of an issue with that than I do with the racial stuff. And even that though, like, the thing is, everything's a touchy subject these days, isn't it? Like, everyone's quite quick to jump to conclusions about what you are based upon. Like, you might have a view that they don't necessarily like, but like, I love the Shield Maidens and the Valkyries, I love Eowyn in like the Lord of the Rings, absolute badass warrior woman who goes into battle on charging in on a horse with a shield and a sword, and that's who she's supposed to be.
Okay, spoiler alert, she beats the shit out of the Witch King, which is the guy that everyone had been afraid of for a couple of hundred of years, so yeah, there's that as well.
I mean, that's you can't get more empowering than that whole scene, quite frankly. I just think that like Galadriel's been made weaker by trying to make her stronger. Does that make sense? Like,
I have something to add to that. So oftentimes with that type of political philosophy comes, I'm gonna try to dance around my words, Karl. So
no, just go ahead, give it straight.
Well, okay, I'll say it. So what they think is a good, strong woman is often what a good, strong man would be. The two are not the same. And so that's how you get Warrior Galadriel out of nowhere. I think there's a certain strength that comes with just being feminine or being a woman. There doesn't need to be any type of overlap. She doesn't need to be a warrior in order to be strong. She's if you remember, she's elegant, she's poised, but she's just strong enough just to speak up in a room full of warriors and things, you know? So there was nothing wrong with her character before, is what I'm saying. There was nothing wrong. It's written back in the 50s and such.
Yeah, I agree with that one. That point, like that. I mean, to be quite honest, that's the only point that has irritated me. Like, I mean, the thing that is that irritated me the most about moving away from the lore is that it has created a big argument amongst a lot of fans who kind of felt that the fandom and the community was quite a close and happy knit community, and then all of a sudden the community's getting separated into these different groups, like and it's just like,
I don't even think that the community is breaking up, to be honest. The community
I don't think it's breaking up. Like the people
there's quite a lot of noise from the outside now. It's mostly these opinion writers and journalists saying, no, you must solve racism because some of you would think that this is bad, and it's sure. Okay.
Nothing could be further from the truth. I think like, don't get me wrong, I guarantee you that there are some racist people.
No, they're everywhere, so it's hard to get rid of them.
That's the world we live in. I get there are going to be some people who have a problem with it because of that point. Okay. That's just the reality of the world. But I think a lot of people are coming from their perspective of what you're saying. I need to pronounce your name correctly again. Kahlil?
Kahlil.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I see, this is the thing. I was saying to Karl, one day I will be feeling a certain way about it, and then I'll be like, oh no, I'm not, I don't have a problem with it. And now you're pulling me in the opposite direction again.
Okay, quickly look at the chat for a second. So, Earthman Brick, blackwashing or whitewashing, I don't care so long as it's well done. Yeah, 100%, man. Campaign terrain. Lord of JRT was a huge racist. To be honest, I don't think he was. I think definitely was very strongly against apartheid, for example.
I've read some theories around that, and they're just all nonsense. I don't want to even get into that. He wasn't.
Yeah.
Okay, the Paint Stings wasn't Galadriel actually a commander, though? Was she?
No, what?
Not that I remember.
Great. Just one.
Say again?
She was just a commander for like one battle, I think.
I'm not sure it was even that, because I mean, like, if you're talking about the kinslaying at Elquelond, I think she showed up late to the battle.
Okay, so right, just to play the devil's advocate thing here again for you guys. I was having a chat with someone this afternoon about this very topic, and I was mentioning about the lore and it being a European, like, effectively written as a European folklore. Now, they were saying to me that Tolkien himself never actually said that it was his biographer who said that. Right? So that's an that one is an interesting point that I now need to go and do a little bit of research into that, whether Tolkien himself actually said that the lore was intended as a European folklore. But what were you laughing at, Karl?
No, just Jack Grimble just said that Tolkien wasn't racist, but H.P. Lovecraft, on the other hand, yeah, H.P. Lovecraft was a very special snowflake.
I was to add to that. I have something to add to that. So H.P. Lovecraft was racist most of his life, but later on in his life, he renounced some of those beliefs. And also on top of that, even if H.P. Lovecraft was racist, even if J.R.R. Tolkien just hated everything, it doesn't take away from the work at all. It doesn't take away from his work. You can legitimately have good work and he be a terrible person. You could look at John Lennon, right? Any Beatles fans. So he was, by the count of his kid, a pretty bad father, but he was good. He had made good music. He made good political opinions based on the times and whatnot.
That's an interesting point. Yeah, so you're basically saying that you can't judge the art itself by every facet of the writer to a certain degree.
Exactly. That's exactly
I mean,
what I'm saying.
Having said that, I've looked into the arguments on J.R.R. Tolkien. They're very, very loose and bad arguments about him being a racist. Terrible arguments.
On the other hand, as I was saying, he always came out very strongly against apartheid, and I think that was also something that his parents drilled into him, because when they were living in South Africa, they were known for treating their servants of color much better than their neighbors. Let's put it that way. It was different enough to be remarked on. But yeah.
Well, I mean, they like. Go ahead. No, you go ahead.
I would argue that your average people or your average person, even back then, I don't think they were necessarily even racist. I think they were just average, everyday people going along with the flow of everything like that. And they weren't actively going out of their way to do things that are racist. They didn't want a genocide of all brown people of color, which I hate, phrase I hate. But I don't think they were just average, everyday people. They just wanted good for themselves, good for the family, and everything like that. And they did whatever they had to do in order to get along in this life and make a way for themselves.
Yeah, I get you. I mean, like most of the things that we think are terrible today, looking back at the past, mostly people wouldn't even be thinking about them, because they're just things that happen normally. It's like everyday stuff.
Exactly. They're just like these grandiose political, philosophical statements of the world and everything like that. And they didn't. I would venture that the average person didn't have time to like philosophize and think and all this other stuff. They just wanted to eat their 3 squares, take care of the children, take care of the wife, etc.
On the other hand, that's also put it out there that Lovecraft was terrified of mathematics and air conditioning. So maybe let's not take any examples from him. Okay. Jamatras Palpatelia, so let's reframe it. What's your favorite moments of the trailer? I think the action bits are definitely my favorite. Like Mike said, the bit where the elf catches the arrow and shoots it back. That's a good piece of action shooting. What about you, Kyle?
I was about to say the same thing actually. I was going to say nothing at all, but then you reminded me of that because I kind of like colored it all bad in my mind. But yeah, that was pretty cool. That was pretty badass.
Yeah, that kind of was one of the things that swung me around a little bit. Was like, the part. One of the things that I'm very aware of is that you've got young black actors who are part of this show now. I feel really uncomfortable with the idea that they're getting any kind of hit because they're in there doing a flipping amazing job probably and really good at doing the role. And now they like, you know, you're probably really excited about getting this role, but now it's kind of stigmatized to a certain degree. I don't like that. I don't like. It's just
That's the thing. I mean, like all the actors working on this will probably be doing their best to do their best job possible.
Well, I think I mean, like a lot of I mean, the whole show's like some of the real hardcore haters of the show are like, I mean, they hate everything about the trailer. They don't even want to. They don't even say that it looks good, like in terms of the visually and stuff like that. There, which is like, I'm just like, come on, you just want to hit. You just want to hit it.
I will say that's one of the things I will say about this. It's very well produced. It usually is. Things of this nature. It's very well produced, very well funded. Has some pretty good actors. I'm sorry to say, but their career is going to be absolutely trashed after this. But the good actors, good actresses, good for what it's worth. The makeup's also pretty good. If you look at the very Queen Elf, the Queen Dwarf, actually the one without the her costumes, for what it's worth, it's pretty good. You know, I can definitely say that they did throw the kitchen sink at this whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that really worries me in that area is that so was Wheel of Time.
Wheel of Time.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which, funny enough, is probably one show where they got diversity right by accident.
And I else to add too. So by the third age, there are no black elves or black dwarves.
Oh yeah, that's another thing that was kind of weirded me out. Like,
yes.
Where did they all go?
So it's so you mean to say that there's in the second age there's black elves, black dwarves, and whatnot. Are you saying that they faced a genocide of some sort?
Well,
or they moved away or something, or
certainly in terms of the dwarves, over time they did kind of face a genocide. Like, I mean, dwarves over time, like they eventually get wiped out. I mean, so that could be argued.
Okay, I'll take that. I'll definitely.
I'm just like I say, I'm playing devil's advocate, but like even whenever you get into the Lord of the Rings, the reason why they don't feature so much is that a lot of the dwarven kingdoms have been destroyed. Like, look at the Mines of Moria. Like, you know, it's like a lot of the dwarven worlds, like, but even by the Hobbit, you're talking about dwarven survival, like, you know, like the remnants of their race trying to scrape it back from the brink of, like, you know, like they had thousands of people to attend the Battle of the Five Armies, but like loads of them got wiped out in the Battle of the Five Armies.
Yes.
So then into the Lord of the Rings, you know, you're talking about a race that were on the back foot. In terms of Elvish, I mean, even in the Lord of the Rings, they're all leaving Middle Earth, you know. So if you really wanted to argue it, you could find a way. If you see what I'm saying.
That's true.
Like,
go ahead.
No, I'm just like I'm kind of enjoying, like, I'm jumping backwards and forwards in my own head. Like,
one of the reasons I wanted to have this discussion, and it's really interesting because it all comes back to the way we enjoy different types of media and the thinking that goes behind them, and why you might like some things and I might not like some things, but that kind of thing, bouncing around, and it's a really interesting way of looking at how we think about the media.
Yeah.
I mean, like, from what I can tell, like, you as black man, you don't like this, the way, like, not just with Lord of the Rings, but the way media seems to be going. That's what,
Yes. Yes.
that's what I'm picking up. And like, you feel like that it's going in an unhealthy direction that's maybe disingenuous or something like that.
There you go. That's it's 100%. I couldn't even say it better myself.
Okay. See, that's very interesting. Like, I mean, that's an interesting perspective because, and like, I think that perspective needs to be heard just as much as people who want inclusivity, because I think inclusivity and representation is extremely important. But where you include and where you're represented is also important, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. It's okay. I would be comfortable with inclusivity and representation on other aspects. For example, consider this, like I said before, with my with the Booker T and W.E.B. Du Bois example. They were both black, but they weren't of the same philosophies, thinking, class, etc. So you have to consider this also when you write this in there too. It's always some dark-skinned elf, and black people just supposed to relate all of a sudden. No, that has nothing to do with nothing right there. They're not even human. So based on their philosophy, their thinking, am I supposed to not relate to them because you didn't make a black human in the show, so therefore I'm not able to relate totally to the elf or the dwarf. It's when you break it down, it doesn't ultimately mesh together well. But I know how it's in the direction it's going because it doesn't allow room for different types of thinking, different ways of thinking that would complement the story or enhance the story, so to speak.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, the T-shirt you're wearing right now is a clear example of that. Yeah, people can relate to other people who don't look like them. Yeah, people can enjoy media. Yeah, say again.
I love Inuyasha.
Yeah, it's a great show. Been a while, but it's a great show. And another thing, I mean, like, it's a fundamental part of empathy is being able to empathize with people who are not like you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So
what does that say exactly to on as far as those people are concerned? Are they saying that because Karl, if you fall in bad times, and if I'm able to help you, am I just going like, white people problems, am I right? And just like not help you when you're down? No, that's silly as stupid. I would help you out just like I'll help a black person out, or I would help Mike over there out. It's all humanity. It's not necessarily about skin color.
Yeah.
Yes. Now I will say this: there is a bit of tribalism in us all, where we feel more related to our culture and people from our culture. Totally fine if it doesn't encroach on anybody's liberties or anything like that. Outside of that,
Okay. So we've got a couple of points from Cross here. JRT was against oppression, however the evil Easterlings were specifically based on Middle Easterners. Did JRT make the judgment based on race, religious ground, both or other?
I have an opinion on that, but keep going.
Okay. If I remember correctly, they were not written as evil. They were under the sway of the shadow. They were basically, again, Sauron set up shop over there, and he had been like feeding them crap for a few thousand years. Same way that he took down Numenor, basically, which will be the subject of the show, I think. So they're not written as evil, but misguided. In fact, there's a bit where Sam, if I remember correctly, looks at one of the Easterlings and wondered if he had wanted to be there, if he had wanted to fight, if he had just been tricked into being there,
Exactly.
that kind of thing. They're still depicted
Yeah.
as humans.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that you write from where you are, if you understand what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
yeah.
So, like in history, like if you look at like the history of the UK, for instance, or like Europe or whatever, like with knights and stuff like that, they're being at war with Eastern knights, like if you were writing from the perspective of growing up in the Middle East, you would write as the white
White
Europeans
invader or whatever, yeah.
would be the enemy.
Bad guy.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Like it's so if you're writing a story from that European perspective, you're writing from the outside being the enemy. You may not understand them, and like maybe they're like just as good as you, but you're opposing sides. You're writing something that's kind of been played over in reality in history time and time again, countries being at war with each other.
Actually,
And
Martin makes a very good point here. Also, in Western culture, the East has been synonymous with dangerous barbaric tribes forever. Yeah, Attila kind of spoiled it for everyone.
and it may be like the thing is, the reality is that it may be wrong. I mean, if you'd been back in history and lived in that culture over there, it's just as good and valid, and like the people themselves are not evil, etc. Of course not, but you're at war with one another. There's an enemies factor to it that is based, like that's just and you're writing about that history, like that kind of thing. You can't write it in a way that isn't, these guys are coming in and we're going to defend ourselves kind of thing. I don't know. It's very hard to articulate what I'm trying to say.
I think I get your point. Basically, short version is history complicated, people complicated, story simple, and you cannot fit all the nuances and shades of stuff into a story.
Yeah, I mean nowadays, like you, it's probably a lot less. But I mean, I'm sure we don't want to get into like politics like here in terms of the current what's happening in like Ukraine and stuff like that there.
What's happening today is the same thing that's happened years ago, the same thing that happened years before that. It's always the same thing.
Exactly. And so the people of Russia and like the people of Ukraine are not viewing each other. It's like these warring governments, that come in, and that like it's these stories have been written about. I don't know. Very hard to get my words in my brain. It sounds all good and kind of like, and then I'm garbling myself up. I'm just going blah, 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 blah.
No, I think your point comes across. But again, like I said, it's a very complex and nuanced subject. There's a reason that there are whole university degrees based on that.
Yeah, and I think that's a very good point there as well. Is it like Tolkien, was a heavy duty professor with a lot of very broad interests about cultures and all of these sorts of things, and like then we get like Google warriors who like do a tiny little bit of research and like feel that they can pull them apart, and I was like, nah, sorry, you can't. Yeah.
I would say he spent the better the better bit of his life thinking and just putting this whole mythology all together. He didn't thought about this type of thing. I don't think the Easterlings I don't think they're necessarily based on like a certain real world culture. It's like it's similar to like George R.R. Martin's work in Song of Ice and Fire, or anything like these people over here. They're they're ambiguous. I don't know well enough to speak on this type of thing, but they're under the shadow. They're under Sauron's influence. You know, it's just like this generality, medieval type of talk, like this. There's dragons over there in the ocean somewhere type of talk.
Yep, it's like as well. Like if you're going to try and like tell a story that is quite clearly just boiled down to like an evil versus good, it's like I don't think Tolkien is talking about like specific races being good. It's about the force of evil and the force of good being at odds with one another. And it's like, how do you depict that?
Exactly.
How do you depict that? You need to have two opposing factors to personify that, to bring that kind of idea to life and to play it out. And like the stuff that Tolkien was trying to write about was good stuff. Like it was unity and friendship, and like actually races coming together to oppose oppression, and to, you know, it was the motivation behind it was good. The motivation behind it was to show good triumphing over evil, whatever that evil may be. So like, for instance, like in our society, racism is evil. That is something that like we need to come together on and triumph over that crap, because it's bullshit. And like, so how was Tolkien doing anything different? Like it's using these kind of opposing factors to, I don't know, be a writer and create literature. I don't know, like blah 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 blah. more blah blah blah.
Yeah, the tricky thing with Tolkien is that.
Oh, go ahead, Karl.
The tricky thing with Tolkien is that remember that there's a phrase going on the internet saying that he hated allegory, but that's not the same thing as hating applicability. In fact, if you look at the whole quote, what he says is that, paraphrasing, allegory bad, adaptability good. The difference between them is that if I make an allegory, I'm telling you what to think. Kind of C.S. Lewis with Narnia, basically. The lion is Jesus.
Yep.
With applicability, the writer is writing a story, handing it over. Here you go. This is the story. Think whatever you like. If it looks like something in your experience, that's okay.
I forgot in one of his letters to his biographer, he said as much too. Actually,
Yeah,
he said as much too. That yeah. And I would also add this too. Wow, brain fart. I actually forgot my point just there.
I've done that a few times myself.
Yeah, that's the story of my life, to be honest.
But I was interested.
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I would say that these people who are pushing forth these arguments, it's not so much that they're arguing the material. They're just throwing this out. You see this time and time again. You saw it with Star Wars, you saw it with He-Man, you saw it with Doctor Who, whatever, where they'll throw out you're an istophobe, you're a ist, you're a this or whatever. They're saying that in order to gaslight anyone who has any type of valid criticism or whatever, and they're assuming that they're speaking on my behalf and they're going to attack you in order to do it, you know. And when it kind of is subversive when I speak out against it,
Okay.
and they're like, hey, hold a second, you're not supposed to do this. You're, but
I'm going to have to sneak off for 5 minutes. I'll be right back. Please go on.
No worries.
Excuse me.
okay.
But carry on there.
It's kind of subversive when I step in and say, hey, he's not an ist. Actually, I don't think most people are, and you know, there isn't any need to call anybody any names or anything like that. That the criticism towards this series, I believe, is very valid. And the reason why I'm not pulling in my punches so much as far as this series is concerned is because I've seen them run through every single series like this, long time established fandoms where the people have good valid concerns. They just go through, say, oh, you're like, oh, I don't like it. The dwarves aren't supposed to be clean shaven. They're supposed to have a beard. Even the women dwarves. You're a ist. You're a phobe. You're a this. You're a that. Or whatever. And the average person, they don't want to be called that. They're not, because they're not actually that. That's a bad thing to be. And I think most people agree with that. Mm-hmm. They're more so just throwing it out because I would say like they're NPCs just running on their programming. They ran out of actual arguments to say and ways to necessarily combat your valid points. So they're going to gaslight all the time. So they're going to say you're istophobe, and they're going to try to tarnish your name and things like that. That's where you see all these people getting canceled when all they really had is just like a valid criticism.
Yeah, I mean that's what one of the things that makes me most uncomfortable is to see, like, because I know what it feels like to love the Lord of the Rings, right? My
Yes.
whole entire life in a hardcore way, like I've been read it by my father since I was born, like, because my sisters and brothers were listening to it, so like I was like literally in the cot while my dad was reading it to them, so I've been hearing it since day one, and I'm not the only person who that it's like that for. Some people they came to love the Lord of the Rings through the movies, and then they've gotten into the books and just fallen in love with the world. But like some people, like I know Karl has been into it for like 70 years at least. Like, so you're when you bring these sort of changes, you're asking a lot of people. Like, it's not just something that is done willy-nilly. No, like for me, I'm really trying to be really as gracious as I possibly can with it, because I know the world we live in, and I can cope with certain changes, like, but ultimately, if I was offered on a platter a lower version of, like, that was just really true to the Lord of the Rings and Tolkien, and you offered me what we're being offered now, I would take Tolkien any day. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's what I would take. So,
of course, and I don't think. Also, another element to it, the reason why I'm so harsh against this is because there's no genuine type of thinking along with it. There's no genuineness. There's no they don't make their arguments in good faith or anything like that. So I feel like I'm not owed that in kind. You saw this happen. It's the biggest one, Star Wars, but you also saw this with Doctor Who as well, when you had the 13th Doctor come in too, where that the less said about that, the better. But you kind of had that come in, and whoever had any type of criticism, it sounded like the fandom right now. Good thing that the fans are fighting back on this. I would say the Lord of the Rings fandom is a little bit more intelligent than all the rest combined. Even again, it's like Karl was saying before. It's just the nature of the medium itself. You get more intelligent, highbrow type of fans going along with it. More established fans that's going along with it.
It's not an easy book to read. Like
no, it's not.
So yeah. Where you at, Karl? That wasn't 5 minutes, by the way. It was about like 30 seconds that you ran away for.
It was enough. So, guys.
2 shakes of a leg.
Yeah, pretty much. So, I'm actually really happy we've gotten in this conversation going. I think we broke the rules of the internet, though, because it was very civilized. We're definitely doing it wrong. must have messed up
I have
somewhere.
a question for Kahlil though. Before we break, I'm probably going to have to go here. I told my wife that I'd be finished at 6:45, and we're kind of running on here.
Whoops.
But are you going to watch it, Kahlil?
No, I'm not going to watch it. I'm not going to watch.
Okay.
I'm not going to give this any for any watching time or anything like that. What I will do though is go to the Peter Jackson film, and then I'll go to the books and I'll read the books all day long. But I won't watch this, and no doubt I'm going to be disappointed from it. I already know it just by looking at it.
Okay, word of advice. The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings are very approachable books. I mean, like, start reading, keep reading, you'll get through. Don't expect the Silmarillion to work the same way. It's more like, even the language is written, it's very scriptural.
Yeah. I did read some of that, and I was like, whoa.
Still good stuff.
So yeah, like you said, Karl, interesting conversation. Like, and it's cool. Like, I mean, I'm just enjoying the fact that, like, to have a chat about it, because I've just not had any opinions on social media. Like, I just like, nah, you know, I like to walk quite a what's the word, stress-free life as possible, and getting into arguments with like trolls and all sorts of stuff, it's just not my cup of tea. Like, you know, just like each to their own. But it's cool to chat with you guys about it for sure.
Nice to chat with you too, actually.
Nice to meet you, Kahlil, man. That was cool. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, nice chat. We'll talk more.
Also, Karl says to me that you're considering getting into a bit of tabletop wargaming.
Oh yeah. I played HeroClix, but just a little bit. But I wanted that itch satisfied. So I wanted to get into 40K, but then I saw the prices, and I'm like, ugh.
Are you into Skyrim at all?
Yeah, just a little bit. I played it a little bit.
I mean, well, just like, because I mean, so I've been getting into Middle Earth SBG, which is the tabletop version of the Lord of the Rings game or whatever, over the last couple of years. I've been loving that, but also at the minute, I've got the Skyrim tabletop game, which is called Elder Scrolls Call to Arms, and it's like for smaller skirmish games, like, so shorter like games, and yeah, pretty cool. So you could check that one out as well.
Oh, okay. Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm going to check it out.
Nice one, man.
Okay, and if you're being put off by the prices of the terrain, which I know we're like,
Karl will build you some stuff and send it over.
No, actually, I was going to tell you just watch Michael's channel and then just follow from there.
You can do that too.
So guys, thank you so much for being here. It was great talking to you, and thanks to everyone in the chat.
It was enjoyable, man. Thank you.
We'll be back next week with Martin from Jamatra Squad Battalion, and
cool.
Have a great week.